Good morning and God bless. Welcome to the Front Page Saturday Town Hall edition. Today's show dedicated to the memory of Congressman John Lewis. May he rest in peace. He made his transition yesterday on the birthday of Nelson Mandela. The same day we also lost civil rights leader Reverend C.T. Vivian. Hearts heavy across the land. John Lewis, an icon, a fighter for justice, the conscience of the U.S. Congress. And we dedicate today's show and send condolences to his family, condolences to America, to the Congress, and lift him up in prayer and really give thanks to Representative John Lewis on this morning. Our topic today is controlling COVID, vaccines, cures, testing, antibodies. We want to bring ourselves up to date on what is going on all of these crucial areas. And it seems even more important right now as California is looking at really shutting back down amidst surges in COVID-19. We're joined by one of our sponsors of this show, who's also just an incredible representative for the people. He's a council member from the 10th District, former council president, former Speaker of the State Assembly, Herb Wesson Jr. Good morning. Council President Emeritus Wesson, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I'm here. So
good morning. I know you have a busy day today. Welcome.
Yeah, but still, I always have time for this show because it's so important. And I just want to say good morning to you, Dominique, and to all of the Front Page listeners. And I, too, send out my condolences for a just great human being, great American in John Lewis. Again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm told, I don't know for sure, that I'm going to be on this segment with Glenn Ellis.
Yeah, I feel like I should let you introduce him, Council President Emeritus. Glenn Ellis Sr., yes. Go ahead.
No, I'm just so excited because, Glenn has participated before on your program, and he really has a way of telling it like it is. I remember the last time he was on, he basically said, this virus, this is not a normal virus. It's not a seasonal virus, and that we need to take this very seriously. It lives in cold weather, wet weather, hot weather, dry weather. It's in 200 countries, and he basically hit the nail on the head here. And what my biggest fear is that people aren't taking this as seriously as they should. And our government, you referenced, we're talking about closing again. On this show, we expressed 6 weeks ago concerns about opening too soon. The governor indicated that we should deal with this based on science, and we have not been. And so, I have a lot of concerns where it relates to that, and a lot of concerns. We've been in this thing 6 months, and we don't have some kind of national testing protocol. This is insane. There are moments like this is when the government is supposed to rise and take care of the people, not shrink and let people run around doing what they assume is the right thing to do.
So well said. I mean, this is why we have the powerful government that we have, one hopes. So yes, we have a medical ethicist, researcher, lecturer, and health journalist, Glenn Ellis Sr. joining us this morning. Welcome, Mr. Ellis.
Good morning, Dominique, and to the listeners. Councilman, you have totally honored me by giving me those kind words, and I hope I continue to try to live up to them. And it's such an honor and a privilege to be on the program with you as well.
Well, you guys both have a way of speaking plainly and making it clear what we need to do. And it seems like we really are at a crossroads, especially here in California and some of the other states that are considered to be red zones or hot watch lists, hot spots. And I we do this show during the weekdays, people are really wondering where we are. And the number one question has to be a vaccine. And I think it's because people think that if we get a vaccine, we can go back to something a little bit like normal. Mr. Ellis, you want to speak to that? Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Go right ahead, Councilman. Go on.
Well, at this point, I think we're going to be looking towards a new normal. Okay, and we do know that our health professionals are doing everything that they can to try to come up with a virus, but we have to continue to live until that happens, and we couldn't even speculate on when that may occur. In fact, that's part of the problems that we're experiencing right now is from people speculating when they really don't know what the hell is going to go on. So I think we just need to be very factual, and people need to recognize just how serious this is. A real quick story. Every Thursday I'm engaged in a food giveaway. And so I was chatting with one of my friends who's part of the giveaway as well, and she went to visit relatives a week ago. She indicated that in order to go where she went, it was a 2-day drive. Once she exited California, she did not see one face mask.
Wow.
And when she would go into the stores, because I guess they did some kind of a camping thing, that people were teasing her, say, hey, you must be from California. So I'm, just suggesting that government needs to reconnect with the people and make sure they understand the severity of this situation. I have referenced before on this show that my oldest son, he's staying in one of these sober living facilities right now. One of the guys in his building died. The guy's 52 years old, young. I mean,
wow.
This is serious, and it's taking people out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are hoping for that cure-all, but we're not there yet. And it does seem like we're getting more and more information about how important the masks might be. Glenn Ellis, do you want to weigh in a little bit about what the council member is talking about in terms of the vaccine, but also his referencing the masks?
Well, first of all, let me just say this about the vaccine, that I've been involved with clinical trial approval at institutional review boards for almost 2 decades. And when I first heard the term warp speed for the development of this vaccine, it made me stop in my tracks, because you can't cut corners in vaccine development. So what they're talking about when they say that they may have a vaccine by the beginning of the year, what they're really saying is we'll be ready to do the next, what would really traditionally be a phase 3 trial, to see what happens in terms of side effects. So they're basically skipping steps. But first of all, I don't believe we're going to probably have it, just based on me tracking the research development process. And even though things have been green lighted to move to the next step and et cetera, there's a lot of stuff. And I want to mention that we are almost 40 years into the HIV/AIDS epidemic. We still don't have a vaccine after 40 years, where the whole world has been working for 40 years to develop a vaccine. So it's important for us to put in context our expectations of what's possible. The second thing is, even before the pandemic, we had a dismal vaccine rate for people who would take vaccines. And needless to say, we know about the anti-vaccine movement, et cetera, the mistrust, conspiracy theories. So none of that has been addressed, and yet we're in a pandemic waiting for a vaccine. So I've seen some research that says at best we may get 40% of the people to take whatever they come up with. That still is nowhere near what's necessary to create the kind of public health herd immunity that would be necessary to make it possible for us to move forward as a society, going back to some sense of normalcy. So the key is we must understand and live as though what's happening now is going to be the norm for the next 3 to 5 years, because I believe it will be. So we have to look at understanding better the dangers of this virus and the precautions that we must take. So when we talk about masks, we have to understand there's undisputable science and research that has shown that between 75 and 90% protection is provided just by having a mask on. So
that's a great point.
Limit the spread of this virus if we don't adhere to that.
And Council President Emeritus Wesson, you've been doing a lot about masks. Yes, go ahead.
Well, we have, I'm going to pat myself on the back on this one. We recognized early on that masks were important, and so before there was an order from the mayor or the governor to wear masks, we were sending them out free to the people in the region. Anybody who contacts us will continue to do that, because, see, I come from the philosophy it won't hurt, okay? So if it doesn't hurt and it might help, then wear it. We're at a space where I think it's important for us as a people to learn how to do the best we can to take care of ourselves and our families. And if it's something as simple as wearing a mask, if it's something as simple as washing our hands, every minute we can think about it till your hands turn into little golden brown raisins, then that's what you do. If it's keeping your distance from folk, then we have to take care of ourselves. And my concern with government, and I am a member of it, but I try my best to tell it like it is. The leadership in this country and in this state, you have to just tell the people the truth. Because if you're going to close and open, then they're not going to believe what you say, and they're not going to do what you say. So we need credibility, and the only way to get that is to be as honest and as brutally frank as possible. Government is not about doing what you want to do. Government is about doing what you have to do.
Right. And, we have chemists coming on the show, scientists coming on later. We're going to talk about, go more in depth in some of these areas. But I want to talk to you before you have to leave us, Council President Emeritus Wesson, about available testing and the masks, because you guys have been giving away masks and the available testing, because there's been a lot of reporting about how there's a shortage, but it seems like there is availability.
Well, there is availability, but then you're hearing talk based on the spikes that the testing might be a tad more restrictive, that you might have to have symptoms or fit in certain categories or what have you, and that's why I was glad that I'm on the show with Glenn, because I wanted to hear from him if he's gotten any tidbits on some kind of national testing protocol, some kind of way where that's going to happen quicker. Results are going to come back quicker. My wife took a test. She got her results back in 24 hours. I took the same damn test. It took me 4 days. So I was wondering what because he always seems to be a little bit ahead of everybody else.
Yeah. So what's your outlook, Mr. Ellis, on a national testing protocol?
Well, here's the difficulty, and Council President Emeritus, thanks for bringing that up, because here's where our real challenge is from what I've been observing. Our problem is that we have a situation where our entire public health system and medical system is tied to commerce. So at a time where there's a national health emergency like this pandemic, we can't pull the financial incentives for all the interest involved in those in public health and in medicine out, so that we could just apply the logic of what's appropriate medical intervention during a time like this that would include testing. Right now we have, and you pointed out the disparity between the kind of results and the timing for your wife's test and your test. We have numerous numbers of companies providing tests out there now, everything from a saliva test. Now somebody's trying to come up with a breathalyzer test type thing. There's the nose swab. There's all kinds of things. And the accuracy of these things is all over the map, as you just pointed out. We don't have a system that requires that those tests are approved. And the things that are approved, we really did not scrutinize what the criteria was that had to be met in order for the FDA to allow these things to be approved under these emergency conditions. So there's a lack of oversight, and there's also a lack of preparation for, at times like this, just like this president nationalized the auto company to make them make ventilators. At certain times, we have to be a part of a system that says, okay, at this point, until further notice, the profit incentive doesn't exist until we can get over this. But because it is still alive and well during this pandemic, we're seeing the kind of things that you just described, Councilman Wesson.
Wow. Well, yeah, and I mean, given the situation, the scenario that we have right now in Washington, it's not that surprising that we don't have a national testing protocol, or those kind of actions that you're talking about, Glenn Ellis, to put this emergency first ahead of profits and political concerns. So that, I guess, puts a lot more pressure on people at the local level, the city, state level.
Well, we also have a situation where we have developed an attitude and a consciousness that is about individual rights and individual states' rights. So I'm not quite sure how much of a difference it really would make right now if we had a national strategy, because as we can see by how each of these states are and the governors and the leadership in respective states around this country are dealing with this and deciding arbitrarily how they are going to deal with this epidemic, I'm not sure that a national strategy would have made a difference right now.
Well, Councilmember,
what the councilman had to say about that.
Yeah, well, I know he has an event. There's probably yes.
Dominique said politics, the word politics, and I think that's why you have these uneven measures in different states, because politics is influencing our dealing with this pandemic more than it should. With me, certain times, if you're a government official, you just have to say, politics be damned. I've got to do the job that the people hired me to do. And I believe at the end of the day, if you do that job, you'll be rewarded for it. If not, it just goes with the territory. So when you get mixed messages from different governors throughout the country, because the president is not really taking the point on this, I think that's what adds to a lot of this confusion. But when it comes to life and death, you can't play politics.
Yeah, that's a great point. And your philosophy reminds me a little bit of Congressman John Lewis. Sometimes you just got to do what the thing is, and then, trust that the people understand that that's what has to be done.
True. I think that people will follow if we lead and if we're up front. I don't see anything wrong with us as we're going through this pandemic to tell people, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but this is what we have to do. This is what I do know, and let's do that. Let's hold on together and let's try to get through this. I think that's what people want.
Well said. Well, Council President Emeritus Herb Wesson, thank you so much for being with us this morning. I know we're stealing you from 100 different events, but I so appreciate
giveaway for people who needed. I mean, people have to eat every day, and trust me, there's just not enough food. But thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me on with Glenn. I hope he keeps coming back. I know I love listening to him. He gives us, in-your-face, honest, simple perspective that everybody understands. So I will see you next week. And Brother Ellis, take care of yourself.
You as well, Councilman, and to you and your family. Thank you so much. Look forward to us connecting here.
Indeed, a food giveaway at the LA Sentinel this morning that Council President Emeritus Herb Wesson will be participating in starts in moments, I believe. So, we called this show Controlling COVID, Vaccines, Cures, Testing, Antibodies. And from what you're saying, it sounds like controlling it is really the ideal scenario, and we might just be about getting through it. So can you just give me whatever updates you feel are most pressing about those topics: vaccines, cures, treatments, testing, antibodies? I mean, it's so much information coming out all the time. I know you're on top of all of it. What is most important for us to know in your view?
Well, I think what's most important, let me just start with the antibodies. The thing that we need to understand is that once a person is infected with the virus, the immune system releases antibodies to try to attack and destroy it. Those antibodies now will remain present as part of the immune system, so that should that happen again and that virus show up, the antibodies won't have to be formed and dispatched. They're already circulating, looking around on patrol, looking for that virus if it ever shows up, so they could nip it in the bud earlier. That's the purpose of antibodies. Now, once we do get exposed, develop antibodies, theoretically, for some viral infections, that means that you now have immunity, like chicken pox. Once you get the chicken pox, that's it. But once you get a cold, you can catch a cold many times. So that because the antibodies to the cold virus don't last long at all. So what they're finding now is that people there was a case just recently, a man had the virus, he developed COVID in March, was almost died after about 20-some days, then he recovered back up. Then he caught it again in May. And then he just caught it again in July.
Oh, man.
So he's been infected 3 times since March. So what we know is that the antibodies definitely do not offer permanent protection. So, if you think about that, every year they come up and you have to take a flu shot for that year's flu virus. That's because those viruses change and the antibodies to the flu vaccine don't last, that the vaccine produces to protect you into the next season. And that's the same thing we're running up to and understanding now about this virus, that antibodies, as they hoped at the early stage of this, would be the saving grace, but they clearly will not be and are not. All they can do is give you an idea of where infections have taken place in a geographical region. So you can test a number of people in a community or a neighborhood or a city, and the number of people that produce antibodies can let you know how wide that virus has spread throughout. Because, as you remember, Dominique, so many people have this. All 40 to 50% have it and are asymptomatic with no symptoms. So that's why the antibody test is so important, because even if you don't have symptoms, you'll produce antibodies. So that will give the researchers and the doctors and other kind of medical people an understanding of where this virus has spread and how far it has spread. That's it. No other protection should we be expecting, in my opinion.
Well, Glenn Ellis, I'm going to have to recruit you to come back in the morning again, because it seems like we just always run out of time and never hit all of our topics. But yeah, it's amazing.
I noticed that.
I have noticed that.
I know you got to go, but I got to tell you that at some point you and I have to talk, because you would have been beaming like a lamp. I had a conversation, Sonia Sanchez and our neighbors here in Philadelphia, and we were talking last week about your father. you would have been beaming with joy just to hear her go down 50, 60 years of memory lane about her relationship and collaborations and just the activism that happened and how she talked about some of the stuff with your father. So I'll share that with you sometime.
Thank you for sharing. Glenn Ellis, thank you so much. Love me some Sonia Sanchez. When we continue.
That makes two.
Yeah, we will continue our conversation. Thank you. Controlling COVID, vaccines, cures, testing, antibodies. Our show today dedicated to the memory of Representative and iconic civil rights activist John Lewis. Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.